Okay, so let's unpack this. Picture a scene,
Hmm.
right? Royal Palace. You've got Queen Mallika,
Hmm.
who was, well, pretty special to King Pasenadi. She's in her bathing chamber.
Okay.
And hers and the dog wanders in. And what happens next is, oh, well, it's a bit surprising. It involves the dog and the queen getting maybe a bit too close while she's washing her legs.
Right. The text uses the term improper intimacy.
Exactly. And guess who sees it? The king, looking down from a window.
Oh, wow. Talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or the right place, depending on your perspective, I suppose.
Huh. Yeah, maybe. But what strikes you immediately is how human this is, right?
Yeah,
A private moment, suddenly not private, leading to this big confrontation.
absolutely. It's got drama, denial,
Hmm.
stuff we can kind of relate to, even if the specifics are, well, unique.
Totally.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we're digging into some really interesting sources. We've got translations of an ancient text, plus commentary that helps explain things. And our mission today, for you listening, is to explore this story. It's got intrigue, definitely some human weakness, but also incredible generosity. And then this big lesson about, well, about how things don't last.
Well, we want to do it in a way that's engaging, get to the core insights without getting bogged down in overly academic stuff.
Exactly. Think of it like getting the really juicy bits and the important lessons from this fascinating old story.
And it's worth remembering, these kinds of stories back then often wrapped up big ethical or philosophical ideas in these relatable, sometimes kind of strange narratives.
For sure. So, okay, back to the scene. The king sees this.
Yeah.
He's not happy, understandably.
No.
He confronts Mallika, and she just denies it
Well,
completely.
but then she does something really clever.
Oh, it's brilliant. She suggests that, looking through that particular window,
Mm.
it kind of distorts things, makes one person look like two.
Which is fascinating, isn't it? How simple things like light and angles can totally mess with what we think we see. She's
Yeah.
sharp.
Very sharp.
Yeah.
And the king, well, the source isn't too kind, calls him basically a bit foolish.
Yeah.
He buys it.
He falls for it.
Yeah. But then Mallika doubles down. This is the audacious part. She talks him into going down there, into the bathing chamber,
Mm-hmm.
so she can look through the window. And then she accuses him of getting intimate with a goat.
No way. That's turning the tables completely.
Right. And because he just experienced that weird visual thing himself, he actually believes her denial too.
Wow. So the shared experience, even though it was based on her trick, actually validates her lie in his mind. That's psychologically quite interesting.
It really is. But, she doesn't just walk away feeling great. The text says Mallika reflects on this, on her deception.
Mm-hmm.
She sees it as a seriously negative action, something that even, enlightened beings would know about. So there's this inner conflict.
Yeah, that's crucial. It shows she's not just a manipulator. She has a conscience and awareness of the karmic weight of her actions, even if she just got away with it.
Okay, so we have this, let's call it the window incident. But then the story pivots. We find out Queen Mallika was actually a huge benefactor.
A massive one, especially supporting the king's own acts of giving, this thing called asadi sadhana, unparalleled giving.
Yeah, like one time, her contribution alone was worth 14 kodis.
Hmm.
And a kodi was, it's hard to translate exactly, but think millions, a huge amount of wealth.
It really paints a picture of immense resources and influence. And it sets up this stark contrast, doesn't it? This personal failing versus these grand, positive public actions.
Absolutely. It shows people are complex,
Yeah.
capable of, well, both messing up and doing incredible good.
And it wasn't just supporting the king's giving, she also gave directly to the Buddha.
Right, some really significant items. A white parasol, a special seat, a support, a footrest. These were considered invaluable symbolic offerings.
It adds another layer, emphasizes her devotion alongside her worldly influence. She's clearly a major figure operating on multiple levels.
But then, the story takes another turn, a really impactful one, when Queen Mallika's dying.
Mm-hmm.
What comes to her mind isn't all that generosity, not the gifts to the Buddha. It's the lie, the deception in the bathing chamber.
Wow, that specific moment.
Yeah. And because that's the thought dominating her mind to death, the consequence is she's reborn in Avicii, which is described as like one of the lowest, most painful hell realms.
Oof, that's a heavy outcome. It's such a stark illustration of how karma is understood in this tradition that the state of mind at death, influenced by past actions, is incredibly crucial. Even one negative action, if it weighs heavily, can overshadow a lot of good at that key moment.
And King Pasenadi, He's utterly devastated by her death, just heartbroken.
Understandable.
He's so consumed by grief, he keeps going to the Buddha, wanting to ask, where was she reborn? Is she okay?
Right.
But, and this is really strange, for 7 days straight, every time he goes to ask, he completely forgets why he's there.
He just blanks on the question for 7 days.
Yeah, just cannot remember what he wanted to ask the Buddha.
Huh. That seems significant. Not just random forgetfulness.
Exactly. And then the text tells us later, there was a reason. The Buddha actually caused this forgetfulness.
Really? Why would he do that?
Well, think about it. The king is drowning in grief. If the Buddha had immediately told him, oh, your beloved Queen Mallika, yeah, she's currently in a terrible hell realm.
Oh, right. The shock could have been devastating. He might have lost faith entirely.
Precisely. The source says the Buddha worried the king might develop wrong views. He might think, what was the point of all our generosity, all that support for the monks, if she ended up there anyway? He might have even stopped supporting the, 500 monks he was sponsoring.
Okay, that makes sense. The Buddha was protecting the king's own spiritual path and the well-being of the monastic community he supported. It was a compassionate, strategic intervention.
Yeah. So this goes on for 7 days. Then on the 8th day, the Buddha takes the initiative. He goes to visit the king during his alms round.
Okay.
The king, hearing the Buddha has arrived, rushes out to greet him. The Buddha indicates he'll sit in the chariot shed, interestingly enough.
The chariot shed. Foreshadowing, maybe?
Maybe. So the king offers refreshments, and then finally he remembers and asks the question that's been burning him up. Where was Mallika reborn?
And what does the Buddha say now on day 8?
He tells him she's been reborn to see to heaven.
Wait, to see to heaven, not Avicii hell.
Correct. A high celestial realm, a place of joy. Because, the text explains, her time in Avicii lasted only 7 days, corresponding to the 7 days the king was made to forget.
Ah, okay. So her negative karma ripened quickly, she experienced the consequence, and then her immense merit from all that generosity kicked in, leading to a heavenly rebirth.
Exactly. But the king is, stunned. He can hardly believe it.
Understandably. After fearing the worst, or maybe just being confused.
Yeah, he starts praising Mallika, talking about how she was always planning ways to give, always thinking about the Buddha, and lamenting how much he's suffered since she died. He's still struggling to process it all.
It's a very human reaction. Grief, confusion, relief, disbelief all mixed together.
So to help the king truly understand and find some peace, the Buddha doesn't just stop there. He shifts the focus. He uses the setting, the chariot shed.
Right, the chariot.
He starts asking the king, whose chariot was this? And this one? And that one? Pointing to different chariots.
Okay.
And the king answers, that was my grandfather's, that was my father's, this one is mine, identifying the lineage of these royal chariots.
It's a simple, concrete starting point, using familiar objects.
Very effective.
Yeah.
Then the Buddha asks, basically, where are those old chariots now? Are they still perfect? And the point becomes clear. Even the finest royal chariots, beautifully made, strong, they wear out, they break down, they decay.
Ah, the impermanence lesson. He's using the chariots as a metaphor.
Exactly. He says, just like those chariots, the body also gets old, it decays.
Yeah.
Everything physical, everything conditioned is subject to change and eventually falls apart. It's the nature of existence.
It's such a powerful visual way to teach a profound truth. We see things wear out all the time, but we often don't apply that same understanding to ourselves or the things we hold most dear.
Right. But then he draws a contrast. He says, while the chariots wear out, while the body grows old, the dharma of the good, the principles of virtue and righteousness, that does not grow old.
That endures. Unlike material things, unlike our physical forms.
And he sums it up in this verse, which is quite famous. Royal chariots, though beautifully made, wear out. So too does the body grow old. But the dhamma of the good does not grow old. Thus do the good reveal it among the good.
Beautiful. It connects the specific situation, the king's grief, Mallika's complex life, to this universal principle. The commentary explains it further, right? That even fancy chariots and well-cared-for bodies decay. But this Dhamma, like the teachings of the Buddhas, the path of virtue is timeless.
Yeah, it clarifies that the Dhamma of the good refers to these supramundane truths and the virtuous conduct of enlightened or noble beings, and that they share this timeless truth with others who are receptive, who are also good or wise.
And the story ends by noting that hearing this discourse, this teaching on impermanence, using the chariot analogy, actually led many people listening to attain different stages of spiritual realization.
So it had a wide impact beyond just consoling the king.
Definitely. It took a personal story and turned it into a universal teaching moment.
So let's wrap this up. For you listening, what are the big takeaways here? I mean, first, it's kind of startling how even people known for great virtue and generosity can still have these significant failings. Nobody's perfect.
Right. And second, our actions, even the ones we think are small or secret, like Malika's lie, they carry weight. They can have really serious consequences sometimes, maybe even overshadowing big gestures at critical moments like death.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought. Third, that chariot analogy is just gold, isn't it? A really clear reminder that everything changes. Everything physical is temporary. Life, possessions, even our bodies, they all wear out eventually.
Hmm. Which leads to the fourth point. The real lasting value isn't in clinging to those temporary things, but in cultivating what the text calls the dharma of the good, those enduring principles of ethics, wisdom, and compassion.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. How might those seemingly small actions in your life, the ones maybe nobody else sees, be creating ripples, consequences you haven't even thought about?
Yeah, and how can you actively focus more on cultivating that enduring dharma, those internal qualities of goodness and understanding, rather than putting all your energy into grasping at things that, like the royal chariots, are ultimately going to fade away? Something to reflect on, definitely. The connection between our intentions, our little daily actions, and their long-term effects.